My experience in combat control training. Introduction. After barely graduating high school and then failing out of college, I desperately tried to prove something to my high-achieving father. At 24 years old, I wasn't exactly where I should have been according to my parents. And deep down, I knew I wasn't either. So eventually, I signed up for Air Force combat control training. Thankfully, I could still see my reality through the haze of alcohol and lack of confidence within myself. My father ran a successful auto repair business and built most of our log cabin by hand. And when I wasn't roaming the property, climbing trees and exploring caves on the 26 acres of woods and fields that surrounded our house, I was by his side cutting firewood, fixing cars, and building sheds and a few shops on the property. His enormous influence and success didn't reach me as a teenager. By my late teenage years, I found every way I could to avoid him and try to find a way to get away from where I lived. It took some time for me to realize that I had to leave the area to find out who I really was. I watched my older brother successfully graduate college and land a great engineering job. Exactly what my father wanted. But I knew my future wouldn't be the same. Instead of landing a high-paying job, I was loading boxes at FedEx in my early 20s after my failed attempt at college. I was filling up 53-foot trailers full of boxes for $7 an hour for 5 days a week, while I lived in an old house I rented that was falling apart near the college campus, 45 minutes away from where I grew up. I spent those years trying to find myself, going out every night with my roommates and going to clubs and bars, hoping for some answers and some sort of change. But that didn't last very long. It nearly made me self-destruct until I started looking at the military. I didn't really want to do anything until I stumbled upon combat control. Although I didn't know much about combat control at the time, one thing I knew was they were a highly respected and sought-after group in the special operations community. And only after training did I find out why. I did things I never thought I knew were possible for myself, like swimming 50 meters underwater, staying up for 5 days without any sleep while carrying 100 pounds of gear on my back, jumping from airplanes at night from 30,000 feet, and just pushing my body further than I'd ever imagined. In this account, I go into detail about nearly 3 years of training to earn the Scarlet Beret. Although it was a struggle filled with self-doubt and broken bones, I'll forever be a better man from this incredible training. Most people have probably heard of the Navy SEALs or Green Berets, but few have ever heard of the elite men of the U.S. Air Force known as Combat Control Technicians, or CCT. They are part of many special operations missions. CCT operators are often assigned to other special operations teams, many times by themselves. So they must be able to run, shoot, swim, dive, and jump along with the other elite units. Their training must be on the same level. Combat controllers must keep up with the added weight of all the gear they must carry to bring the valuable skills they offer on a mission. A combat controller is a FAA-certified air traffic controller that carries along radios and equipment to communicate with military aircraft and coordinate airstrikes on enemy targets. With the ability to communicate with large firepower from the air, combat controllers are known as some of the most deadly special operators in the U.S. military. Combat controllers are also known to be first there on a mission objective, setting up landing areas, establishing communications, and guiding in other forces. Combat control training is a blend of other special operation forces training, with the main difference of carrying a lot of gear and equipment, including radios, for extended periods of time. All the physical and specialty training combined with the added weight of all the gear creates a very difficult pipeline with a very high washout rate. In this story, I detail my experiences of each school that is known as the pipeline. From basic training to combat control school, high altitude, low opening, jump training, and the dreaded indoor pool that caused me nightmares. I describe each event in detail and what it was like to experience each scenario. I not only describe the struggle to graduate and prove something to my family, but also another internal struggle that developed toward the end of my training. I had to deal with a difficult decision that appeared when I discovered I was having my daughter and planned to marry my current wife, who I had met toward the end of combat control school. At a time that I had to make several big decisions under an enormous amount of pressure, I was struggling to find answers. This book is full of my failures, overcoming enormous odds and trying to find success in one of the most difficult situations I could have possibly put myself into.
And you can read about it all in my experience in combat control training.